The conditions are right for confession. It is a beautiful August day in Montecito, in a beautiful sitting room, in a beautiful home. Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor, a lively 3-year-old with a shock of ginger curls identical to his father's, toddles into the room demanding Mama listen to his heartbeat with a wooden toy stethoscope. He stands, tummy protruding, while his mother, Meghan, convincingly performs her glee at hearing the thump thump, thump thump in his chest. Archie giggles and, satisfied, toddles right back out again. Meghan, relaxing in a cozy chair, gazes over all that is climate-controlled and high-ceilinged and sun-dappled and perfectly marshmallowy, and hers. An invisible hand has lit a Soho House-branded rosewater candle. The founder, Nick Jones, is a friend from long before I met Harry, she says, and that scent fills the air, mingling with the gentle tones of a flamenco-inflected guitar floating from a speaker. Then, in the lull in conversation, Meghan turns to me and leans forward to ask in a conspiratorial hush, "Do you want to know a secret?" Meghan, silenced no more, looks around, making sure nobody, who would be. Then the top secret drop. "I am getting back, on Instagram," she says, her eyes alight and devilish. This could have been a troll. Delivering a nothing with such gravitas feels as if Meghan, who has been so trolled by the media, is serving it back, just a little. But, as I quickly realize, it is actually news. Before this chapter in her life, before everything difficult that spun off from marrying the Duke of Sussex and, along with him, the British monarchy, she was just Meghan Markle, a woman with a plum role on a USA procedural and a moderately popular lifestyle blog, The Tig. Fans watched as she attended events with her Suits castmates and charity galas, nights out at Soho House in London and Toronto. She ran that account for years before she met Harry, but on the heels of their engagement, control over her Instagram was just one of the things, along with the Tig, her passport, and the freedom to open her own mail, she gave up. Shed loved sharing her life with people, she says, but she loved Harry more. It was a big adjustment, a huge adjustment to go from that kind of autonomy to a different life, says Meghan. On the cover, photo, Campbell ad, there's literally a structure by which if you want to release photos of your child, as a member of the family, you first have to give them to the Royal Rota, the UK media pool, she explains. Usually, the photos would be on media outlets before she could post them herself. That didn't sit right with Meghan, given her strained relationship with the British tabloids. Harry's girl is almost straight outta Compton is how the Daily Mail introduced her to the British public, and especially since she would soon have a child of her own to protect. Why would I give the very people that are calling my children the N-word a photo of my child before I can share it with the people that love my child? She asks, still ruffled. You tell me how that makes sense, and then they'll play that game. On their own account, they refuse to play the exchange game. They broke their own news, posting photos that sometimes never even made it to the Royal Rota. They could no longer use royal in their branding. Later, in an interview with Fortune, Meghan declared that she wasn't planning on getting back on social media. The constant bullying had been too much. So this divulgence, in addition to being newsworthy, is a symbol of progress. Proof that she and Harry have made it to the other side of all the drama that defined their past 3 years. Especially now, with archetypes coming out, she says, steering the conversation toward the reason she agreed to sit for an interview in the first place. Archetypes, the podcast Meghan hosts, is the first, much-anticipated offering to come from the pair of high-profile deals the couple signed in 2020 with Netflix and Spotify. Each episode features her, in conversation with her famous friends, discussing the ways women are unfairly labeled. An experience, Meghan notes, she has been through herself and is finally ready to talk about. Progress, however, is a series of steps forward and leaps backward. Later, Meghan would relay she was no longer sure she would actually return to Instagram. Though she has been media trained and then royal media trained and sometimes converses like she has a tiny bachelor producer in her brain directing what she says. At one point in our conversation, instead of answering a question, she will suggest how I might transcribe the noises she's making. She's making these guttural sounds, and I can't quite articulate what it is she's feeling in that moment because she has no word for it. She's just moaning. At this stage, post-royal, there's no need for her to hold back. She's flinging open the proverbial doors to her life. As any millennial woman whose feminism was forged in the girl boss era would understand, she has taken a hardship and turned it into content. Meghan's journey from Deal or No Deal suitcase girl to princess had the makings of a fairy tale or, at the very least, a stellar romantic comedy. but it took almost no time to turn into an extraction plot from a mid-90s political thriller. When those talks went nowhere, there were even more clandestine conversations with a network of rich and powerful friends that led to an escape to Vancouver Island for a 6-week holiday that turned into something far more permanent. It was from there the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Harry and Meghan, made a surprise announcement that they would be stepping back from their roles as senior members of the royal family in an Instagram post so full of hidden context and meaning that MI6 could use it for message decoding training. Their accepted exit terms, or Megxit, to use the term the papers favored, even though Harry declared it misogynistic, stipulated that the couple would no longer make appearances on behalf of the Queen, would no longer be permitted to use the HRH designation, and would make their own money, though Prince Charles provided some financial assistance for the first year. They were left sans public funding to bankroll both their lives and the security that protected those lives, and the press had just leaked the location of the coastal home they were staying in. By March 2020, the pandemic was underway, and there was talk of the Canadian-US border closed. They could see men on boats watching them from the water. Though Meghan had never met Tyler Perry in person, he had reached out when she and Harry got married to tell her that he was praying for her and that he understood what this meant, Meghan recalls, referring to the symbolic weight of their wedding, and that he could only imagine what it was like. He also told Meghan to call if she ever needed support or advice. It took her a long time to do so, she admits. But once she did, she found herself telling him every detail of their situation in Canada. Sometimes, you can tell your life story to a stranger on a plane as opposed to some of the people that are closest to you, she says. And in a plot twist I may never get over, Perry offered her one of his homes, a literal safe house in Beverly Hills, complete with security detail, and became, in many ways, the reason that Meghan and Harry started their new life in Southern California. But she already covered all of this in the interview for Oprah. She reminds me with a firm smile and a wave of her hand that signals it is time to move on. In March 2021, a year after they'd left for America, Meghan and Harry put rumors about Megxit to rest. They took part in an interview special with their neighbor and collaborator Oprah Winfrey that attracted 17 million viewers. Over the course of the 85-minute special, she dropped bombshells, baby, about Charles not taking Harry's phone calls, about palace conversations where a still unnamed someone kvetched over how dark Archie's skin would be. She clarified that it was Kate Middleton who made her cry over flower girl dresses, not vice versa, as the tabloids had previously reported. Bombshells and the firm, leaks and relocations, racism against babies. This was definitely not a fairy tale, but revealing all of it was their way of setting fire to a narrative they didn't control and letting a new one emerge. My first glimpse of Meghan in this new chapter is her crouched in the entryway, arms wrapped around her black lab, Pula, Setswana for rain and good fortune, and a tribute to an early date during the couple's whirlwind romance in 2016. The front doors are thrown wide open, as are the doors leading out to the backyard. She stands and smiles with the perfect level of warmth, the gleam of her teeth rivaled only by the shininess of her blowout, backlit by the late morning light in a scene that looks like a Nancy Meyers cinematic interior. Town and Country, Goop, and Architectural Digest had an orgy and created the perfect moment in California living. She throws her arms wide open, too, and gives me a hug. Come on through, she says, beckoning me to join her on one of many terraces. When the media has shaped the story around you, it's really nice to be able to tell your own story. The Montecito house is the kind of big that startles you into remembering that unimaginable wealth is actually someone's daily reality. It evokes a classic Tuscan villa, a Napa vineyard, and a manicured Beverly Hills country club decorated with careful, considered coastal tones for a casual air. The home equivalent of billionaires dressing down in denim. Finding a house to start their new life wasn't easy, Meghan tells me. We were looking in this area, she's referring to Montecito, the Tony beachside hamlet north of Los Angeles, and this house kept popping up online in searches. At first, they'd resisted going to visit. We didn't have jobs, so we just were not going to come and see this house. It's like when I was younger and you're window shopping. It's like, I don't want to go and look at all the things that I can't afford. That doesn't feel good. How utterly humbled we all are when confronted with a depressingly aspirational Zillow hunt. They did eventually tour it and fell almost immediately in love. And since they have income now, in the form of a reported $25 million Spotify deal and a reported $100 million Netflix deal, it's within their means. Meghan stops to point out two massive Dr. Seussian palm trees, dead center on a lawn so verdant it's better not to consider the water bill. One of the first things my husband saw when we walked around the house was those two palm trees, she coos. See how they're connected at the bottom? He goes, my love, it's us. And now every day when Archie goes by us, he says, hi, mama. Hi, papa. They had toured only the grounds when they told the real estate agent, we have to get this house, Meghan says. It didn't matter that they hadn't seen the inside. Meghan gestures to the sweep of the property, from chicken coop to pool house to main house.